I have seen a lot in my 42 years on the bench. I have watched people lie to my face, cry crocodile tears, and try every trick in the book to manipulate a courtroom into doing what money wants instead of what justice requires. I have seen sealed envelopes, whispered sidebars, and legal maneuvers so slick they could slide under a locked door. I have seen lawyers try to hand me letters from congressmen, character references from governors, and documents designed to make me see their client as something other than what the evidence says he is. But I have never in all my decades wearing this robe had an attorney walk up to my bench, hand me a folded note, and watch me read something so brazen, so nakedly corrupt, that it changed the entire direction of a trial in 10 seconds. Until the morning of January 13th, 2025, at exactly 9:48 a.m., when a man named Elliot Crane Beaumont, lead counsel to billionaire real estate developer Victor Constantine Novak, handed me a piece of paper that did not save his client. It buried him. You think you have heard courtroom stories? Trust me, this one turns on a single piece of paper, and when you hear what was written on it, the air will leave your lungs. Hit that subscribe button right now because what I am about to tell you is going to make you furious. Then it is going to make you proud to live in a country where a piece of paper can destroy a billionaire as easily as it can destroy anyone else. Let me take you back to how this whole thing started. The case file on my desk was complicated and ugly. Case number 2025-CR-0147, reckless endangerment, building code fraud, negligent injury, and intimidation of a witness. The defendant was Victor Constantine Novak, age 61, founder and CEO of Novak Development Group, a man who had built shopping centers, luxury condominiums, and mixed-use towers across 4 states. Forbes had his net worth at $1.4 billion. The victim was a woman named Rosa Amelia Vasquez, age 38, a housekeeper at a Novak-owned apartment complex called the Residences at Harbor Point, who had been seriously injured when a stairwell ceiling collapsed on her while she was cleaning the 3rd-floor landing. Now, Rosa Vasquez, I need you to know this woman before anything else, because what happened to her was not an accident. It was the consequence of a rich man cutting corners, and Rosa paid the price with her body. Rosa came to Providence from Honduras 12 years ago. She came legally, on a work visa, because an agency had placed her with a cleaning company that serviced commercial properties. She worked hard, got her green card, married a man named Tomas who worked as a mason's assistant on construction sites, and they had 2 children, Sophia, age 10, and Diego, age 6. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Olneyville, $1,050 a month, in a building where the hallway light flickered and the elevator worked only half the time. Rosa made $13.50 an hour as a housekeeper. Tomas made $17 an hour when there was work, which was not always. Together they brought in roughly $52,000 a year in good years. They had $670 in savings. Rosa was the kind of employee that every employer wants and few deserve. She arrived 10 minutes early to every shift. She cleaned thoroughly and quickly. She never called in sick unless one of the children was in the hospital. Her supervisor at the cleaning company, a woman named Janet Okafor, told me in a written statement that Rosa was the most reliable worker she had managed in 15 years. Janet said Rosa took pride in her work the way some people take pride in a profession that requires a degree, because to Rosa, every job done well was proof that she belonged here, that coming to America had been the right choice, that her children would have more than she did. If you have ever cleaned someone else's building, scrubbed someone else's floor, or made someone else's home spotless while your own home waited, please subscribe to this channel. We are a family here fighting for justice and compassion. Join us now. When Rosa walked into my courtroom, she was in a wheelchair. Her left shoulder was immobilized in a rigid brace. She had a visible scar running from her temple to just above her left ear, where a section of concrete had struck her head. She was wearing a clean white blouse and a dark skirt, both pressed carefully. Her hair was braided. Sophia and Diego were not in court. They were at school. But Tomas was beside her, his work-roughened hands folded in his lap, sitting with the rigid stillness of a man who does not understand courtrooms, but understands that his wife was hurt and someone needs to answer for it. But here is where it gets interesting. Are you still watching? On the morning of October 22nd, 2024, at approximately 9:15 a.m., Rosa was cleaning the third-floor stairwell landing at the residences at Harbor Point, a luxury apartment complex on the Providence waterfront that Novak Development had built 3 years earlier. The complex had 180 units, rooftop amenities, a fitness center, and rent starting at $2,800 a month. It was marketed as premier urban living. Rosa was mopping the landing when a 4-foot section of the stairwell ceiling gave way. Concrete, rebar, and plaster fell directly onto her. A piece of concrete the size of a dinner plate struck her head. A section of rebar gashed her shoulder. She was buried under debris from the chest up. She could not move. She could not reach her phone. She lay there for 11 minutes until another housekeeper, Maria Delgado, heard her moaning and called 911. Rosa suffered a fractured left clavicle, a severe laceration to her scalp requiring 22 stitches, a concussion, and nerve damage in her left shoulder that her doctors said might be permanent. She could not lift her left arm above her waist. For a housekeeper, that is a career-ending injury. She could not mop. She could not scrub. She could not reach above her head to dust, to wipe, to clean the surfaces she had cleaned every day for 12 years. The building inspection that followed the collapse revealed something that made my stomach turn. The stairwell ceiling had been flagged as structurally deficient during a routine municipal inspection 18 months earlier. The inspector had noted cracking concrete, exposed rebar, and water infiltration that was corroding the reinforcement. He issued a repair order. That repair order was sent to Novak Development Group. It was never completed. An internal email obtained during discovery, dated 4 months before the collapse, showed that Novak's property manager had forwarded the repair order to Victor Novak personally, with a cost estimate of $34,000 for the stairwell repairs across the building. Novak's reply was 2 sentences. We're not spending $34,000 on stairwells in a building that cash flows $6.2 million a year. Cosmetic patch only. Move on. Let me say that again. A billionaire who earned $6.2 million a year from a single building refused to spend $34,000 to fix a ceiling that an inspector had flagged as dangerous. And 18 months later, that ceiling fell on a woman making $13.50 an hour. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you are feeling. And if you believe a building's tenants and workers deserve to be safe, hit that like button. What happened next changes everything. Rosa filed a complaint through legal aid. Her attorney was a young woman named Daniela Ferreira, who took the case pro bono. The city building department launched an expanded inspection of the entire Harbor Point complex and found 14 additional code violations across the property: cracked fire escapes, improperly sealed gas lines, and 2 elevator shafts with expired inspection certificates. Novak was charged. The case landed on my docket, but there was more. After the charges were filed, Rosa received a visit at her apartment from a man she had never met. He wore a suit. He handed her a cashier's check for $50,000 and a document written in English which Rosa could read but did not fully understand. The document was a non-disclosure agreement. It said that in exchange for the $50,000, Rosa would drop her complaint, refuse to testify, and never speak publicly about the ceiling collapse. Rosa did not sign it. She called Daniela. Daniela called the police. The man was later identified as a private investigator on retainer with Novak Development. Witness intimidation was added to the charges. Before I go any further, if you believe safety should not depend on the price of a repair, subscribe now. January 13th. Court day. Victor Novak arrived at 9:35 a.m. in a custom charcoal kitten suit, the kind handmade in Naples that runs between $8,000 and $12,000. His shoes were Berluti, polished to a mirror finish, easily $2,200. His watch was an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in stainless steel, the classic model, worth approximately $35,000. His cufflinks were gold, monogrammed, discreet. He had a legal team of 4, led by Elliot Crane Beaumont, a man I recognized from a previous case years ago. Tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a navy Brioni suit, carrying a leather portfolio that cost more than Rosa's monthly rent. Novak walked into my courtroom with the controlled energy of a man who was accustomed to buildings, not courtrooms, but who believed both could be managed with the right team. Rosa was in her wheelchair near the front, white blouse, braid, scar. Tomas beside her. If you are still with me, you are about to see the moment that changed everything. Like this video right now if you believe nobody is above the law. Beaumont delivered the defense. A corporate matter being conflated with criminal intent. Repairs were scheduled but delayed by contractor availability. The collapse was tragic but not foreseeable. Novak's company had an exemplary safety record across 40 properties. He requested the charges be reduced and resolved through civil remediation and corporate compliance measures. I asked Novak if he wished to address the court personally. He stood. He buttoned his Khitan jacket. Your Honor, I have built over 40 properties in 4 states. I employ thousands of people. I have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in urban development that has revitalized neighborhoods and created jobs. This was a maintenance issue that fell through the cracks. I deeply regret that Ms. Vasquez was injured. We have offered generous compensation. I take full responsibility for the oversight, and I am committed to ensuring it does not happen again. The courtroom was quiet. It was polished. It was practiced. Tell me what you would do sitting in my chair right now. And then it happened. The moment that changed everything in 10 seconds. Beaumont stood and approached my bench. He said, Your Honor, I have a communication I would like to present for your private consideration before sentencing. He held out a folded note, cream-colored stationery, heavy stock, the kind that comes from a personal desk set that probably cost $400. In my courtroom, attorneys do not hand me private notes. Everything goes through proper channels. But Beaumont was experienced enough to know that, which meant either he had made a catastrophic miscalculation or he was testing me. I took the note. I opened it. I read it. The note read, Judge Caprio, Mr. Novak is prepared to make a $2 million donation to the Providence Municipal Court Improvement Fund and the Rhode Island Judicial Scholarship Program, effective upon a favorable resolution. We trust the court will consider the broader community benefit of this arrangement. ECB. I read it twice. I read it a third time to make sure I was not misunderstanding. Then I looked up at Beaumont. He was standing with his hands clasped, his expression neutral, his posture suggesting that he had done this before, and it had worked. I held the note up so the courtroom could see it. Mr. Beaumont, I am going to read this note aloud, on the record, because in my courtroom, there are no private communications between counsel and the bench during a criminal proceeding. I read every word, slowly, clearly, into the microphone. The courtroom went dead silent, the kind of silence where you can hear your own pulse. Beaumont's face drained. Novak leaned forward in his chair. His legal team froze. Daniela Ferreira, Rosa's attorney, put her hand over her mouth. Tomas did not fully understand the English, but he understood the silence, and he put his hand on Rosa's arm. If you have stuck with me this long, you are amazing. Subscribe if you have not already. What comes next is the moment everyone waited for. Mr. Beaumont, what you have just handed me is an attempt to bribe a sitting judge in a criminal proceeding. This note offers $2 million contingent on a favorable outcome. That is not a donation. That is a transaction. And in my courtroom, justice is not transactional. I am holding you in criminal contempt. I am referring this note to the State Attorney General and the Rhode Island Bar Association for investigation of attempted bribery, obstruction of justice, and ethical violations. And I am entering this note into the permanent record of this case as Exhibit A of what happens when a man with $1.4 billion believes that the law has a price. I turn to Novak. Mr. Novak, on the charges of reckless endangerment, building code fraud, negligent injury, and intimidation of a witness, I find you guilty on all counts. I am fining you $50,000. Every penny will go to Rosa Vasquez for her medical expenses, her lost wages, her rehabilitation, and a fund for her children Sofia and Diego's education. Because the $34,000 you refused to spend on a ceiling is the reason a mother of two cannot lift her arm to hug her children. You will perform 600 hours of community service. You will serve them with Habitat for Humanity, building homes for low-income families in Providence. You will hang drywall. You will install ceilings. You will learn what a ceiling is supposed to look like when a man builds it right, instead of patching it cheap. You will do it in work clothes. No Keton, no Berluti, no Audemars Piguet. You will learn the difference between building for profit and building for people. All 40 of your properties in Rhode Island are subject to immediate emergency inspection by the State Building Authority. Your company is prohibited from filing new development permits in this state until every existing violation is remediated and certified. And your driver's license, I am suspending it for 1 year, because a man who cannot be trusted to maintain a ceiling should not be trusted to operate a vehicle on the roads this state maintains. I paused. I held up the note one more time. This note, this piece of cream-colored stationery. This is what $1.4 billion looks like when it thinks it can buy a courtroom. $2 million for a favorable resolution. Mr. Novak, let me tell you what a favorable resolution looks like in my courtroom. It looks like Rosa Vasquez being safe in the building where she works. It looks like a ceiling that does not collapse on a woman mopping a floor. It looks like a $34,000 repair being made the first time an inspector flags it, not 18 months later when a mother is buried under rubble. That is a favorable resolution, and it costs $34,000, not $2 million. In my courtroom, the only currency that matters is the truth. And the truth is that you let a ceiling fall on a woman because you did not want to spend the money to fix it, and then your lawyer tried to buy your way out. Rosa Vasquez earned $13.50 an hour cleaning your building. She deserved a ceiling that stayed up. That is not a high bar, and you could not clear it. The courtroom erupted. People stood. Applause. Tears. Rosa was crying in her wheelchair with Tomas's arm around her, his face pressed into her hair. Daniela Ferreira was standing with the note's contents still ringing in the air, her legal pad forgotten. Novak was sitting with his hands flat on the defense table, staring at the wood. Beaumont was standing near the bench where he had handed me the note, his silver hair and Brioni suit now looking like a costume from a play that had just closed. He knew. The portfolio, the stationery, the practiced neutral expression, none of it could hold together what that note had undone. Smash that like button if you believe justice was served today. Elliot Beaumont was disbarred by the Rhode Island Bar Association within 4 months. He was subsequently charged with attempted bribery and obstruction of justice. He pleaded no contest and was sentenced to probation with permanent loss of his law license. The cream-colored note is now a teaching exhibit at 2 law schools. Victor Novak was indicted by the Attorney General on 14 counts of building code fraud across his Rhode Island properties. He pleaded guilty to 8 counts and was sentenced to 2 years in state prison. His company was fined $3.8 million by state regulators. Emergency inspections of his 40 properties resulted in 67 code violations being identified and repaired. The residences at Harbor Point underwent a full structural renovation. The stairwell where Rosa was injured has a new ceiling, new lighting, and a small plaque that the building's maintenance staff installed on their own, without asking permission. It reads, "Built right." Rosa Vasquez's shoulder responded to physical therapy better than her doctors expected. She regained partial overhead motion after 6 months of twice-weekly sessions. She cannot return to full-time housekeeping, but she was hired as a cleaning supervisor at a hospital in Cranston. A position that pays $18.50 an hour, includes full health insurance for the first time in her life, and does not require her to lift above her head. Janet Okafor, her former supervisor, wrote her the recommendation letter. The $50,000 fine covered her medical debt and started education funds for Sophia and Diego. The community raised $97,000. Sophia won a school essay contest. The essay was about her mother. It was titled, "The Strongest Person I Know." Tomas framed it and hung it in the living room beside their wedding photograph. I think about that note. I think about Beaumont walking up to my bench with cream-colored stationery and a $2 million offer folded inside it. believing that a courtroom was just another room where money talks. I think about the 10 seconds between when I opened that note and when I held it up for the courtroom to see. In those 10 seconds, a $1.4 billion empire cracked. Not because of a prosecutor, not because of a witness, because of a man's own arrogance, written in his own lawyer's handwriting, on his own stationery. My father used to tell me, an honest man does not need to buy anything in a courtroom. He walks in with the truth and walks out with his dignity. Victor Novak walked in with a Keaton suit and a $2 million note. He walked out with neither his dignity nor his freedom. Rosa Vasquez walked in with a wheelchair, a scar, and the truth. She walked out with justice. One of them paid for their day in court. The other earned it. To anyone watching who owns a building, manages a property, or makes decisions about where money gets spent, $34,000 fixes a ceiling. It also fixes a conscience. Do not wait for the ceiling to fall. To anyone who cleans a building, mops a floor, scrubs a stairwell at 9 a.m., while the people who own the building sleep in their penthouses, you deserve a ceiling that stays up. You deserve to go home safe. Rosa Vasquez sees you. I see you. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If you believe in real justice, I am asking you to do 3 things for me. Subscribe to this channel so stories like Rosa's reach every person who needs them. Leave a comment and tell me about someone who builds, cleans, or maintains the spaces where you live and work. Someone who deserves more credit than they get. And watch the next video. It is about a senator's son who pulled out his phone during his own trial, and what the judge found on it ended his family's political dynasty. I promise you, it will leave you stunned. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that a woman with a mop deserves a ceiling that holds. In my courtroom, justice is not just a word, it is a promise, and I keep my promises.